Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, and you?
Good. So today is the 9th of October, 2024. It is 9:05 a.m. and I'm calling the meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority Board of Directors to order. I'd like to start by introducing our new member, our newest appointee, Leah Masters. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself or say anything?
I'm currently retired. I just retired in January. I worked in banking. I graduated from UTEP. I'm married, 2 kids and 5 grandchildren, and very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Appreciate your volunteering. So with that, I'll ask Raymond to do roll call for the record, and then let me know whether or not we have any public comments, please.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Wilson? Here. Mr. Smith? Here. Mr. Reyes? Here. Ms. Masters?
Here.
And online, Ms. Bird?
Yes, here.
Okay.
We do have a quorum and no comments received.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, I'll move to item 2, adoption of the minutes for the RMA board meeting of September 4th, 2024. We have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Mr. Reyes moved, Mr. Smith second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 3 is discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing those actions necessary to submit 1 or more grant applications for the Sun Cycle Bike Share Fleet Improvement Project as part of the El Paso Metropolitan Planning Organization's Transportation Alternatives Set Aside for fiscal year 26-28 project call.
Thank you, Raymond Tejas, Executive Director of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. So as you know, we own and operate the Sun Cycle Bike Share Program. Back, I want to say it was maybe 2 years back, the El Paso Metropolitan Planning Organization had a project call for its Transportation Alternative Set Aside Program, which is also referred to as the TASA. It essentially is a fund that's set aside for alternative modes of transportation and that sort of thing. So we applied in the 2024 and 2025 fiscal years for funding to support us in our pursuit of new electric assist bikes for the Sun Cycle program. We were successful in that. In fact, Robert's going to touch on this in his Sun Cycle update on how we are just about to launch the addition of 36 electric assist bikes. So those have been purchased. Those are, we're adding the graphics to it now as we speak. So we're hoping to launch later this week or early next week. We'll start rolling those out. So very successful grant program. We were awarded funds in fiscal year 24, which are the bikes that we're launching today. And then in 25, we've begun the process to access those funds, and we should have access to those funds early next year, at which point we'll make another purchase, hopefully in the range of about 30, 35 additional bikes. Well, recently we got word from the El Paso Metropolitan Planning Organization that they have a new project call for fiscal years 26, 27, and 28. So we'd like to do the same. We essentially would put in a local match and pull down federal funds so that we can begin the full replacement of our regular red bike fleet with electric assist. So that's our goal. Part of the reason why we're so excited about this program is that we've noticed that electric assist bikes are checked out 3 times more often than the regular red bikes. They're ridden for longer periods of time, and generally the public just likes them a whole lot better. They're great. I always tell the story about when we launched a pilot program with these electric assist bikes. We asked Representative Schwartzbein to hop on a bike, and he rode straight up Stanton Street. He's not a cyclist, but as you know, Stanton Street has quite a significant grade, and he made it up that grade with no problem. So these bikes are great. They go farther and faster, and folks are riding them longer. So really excited about this program. This resolution authorizes staff to submit the application, which is due next Friday on the 18th. It does not, and in the end, I will tell you, if we are successful, we'll come back to you with agreements and the actual allocation of matching funds. So that's what I have for you on this one. I would definitely recommend approval of this item, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
So are these additions to the fleet?
We will begin replacing. So the bikes that we have been out there since about 2015, so they're showing some wear. So these will begin the replacement process. And frankly, what we'll do is we'll pull some of those red bikes out of the fleet, and we'll cannibalize those, take pieces off, and continue to have the remaining red bikes up and running for quite some time. They're very sturdy bikes. Yeah.
Any speeding tickets yet? I had one pass me up on the roads.
I believe it. I believe it.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Mr. Reyes moved.
I'll second.
Ms. Masters, second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 4 is discussion and action on the following reports for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2024. A, our operating budget. B, investment report. C, El Paso Bike Share Sun Cycle Program. And D, general engineering consultant team's use of local resources.
Good morning, Robert Studer, Director of Finance. For the record, so normally the Finance Committee reviews all these reports in depth. Due to some scheduling difficulties, the committee was not able to meet yesterday. However, we gave full briefings to 2 members of that committee. So we don't have an official recommendation from the committee, but we do have one of the committee members who received a full briefing. We do have a rather short agenda today, and I do think it would be worthwhile to go over these reports, even at a high level, so that we can get Ms. Masters a little clued in. Okay, so now I'll start with item 4A, which is just an update on our operating budget. Normally we have a full interim financial statement that kind of breaks out our different funds, but since we're have not yet quite really finished the fiscal year and are finalizing for the audit, then I'm just going to provide an update on the operating budget. IT, if you'd scroll down to the bottom of this actually, and we'll start with the bottom line up front for Jim. The revenue less appropriations, that very bottom row, we made over $500,000 last year when all was said and done. We had a really good year financially for the RMA. If you could scroll up to that top section, just to walk you through how we arrived at that, please go up a little bit more. Perfect, thank you. That top section, that top box is revenue, and the bottom row is interest and investments. You'll see we budgeted $720,000. We made over almost $1.3 million. One of the reasons for that is the Fed kept rates elevated. They just cut in September, but because they kept rates high for the full year, and that really was not factored in, we assumed rate cuts. That's what the market a lot was forecasting, and if you read pundits a year ago when we were doing our budget, we didn't want to be too aggressive, but rates were elevated throughout the year, and that really helped us. So that led to significant investment income. If we scroll down to the appropriations, just a reminder, we did budget last year for the third position. We didn't fill it. We've budgeted for it again in the upcoming year, or the current year, fiscal year 25, but we did finish under budget there. The next section is contracts. If you look at the bolded bigger row, the budget was $278,000. We only spent $188,000. That's been the practice. You all grant us a little bit of cushion, and then we don't have to micromanage the budget throughout the year, but we consistently finish under budget within those line items. And then the last section is operating expenditures. This one is inflated for fiscal year 24. You'll recall that last year during the budget process, the board was very supportive of the Sun Cycle program and asked to move over a little 3 years worth of operating support for that. You take that out, you back that out, the budget's around $15,000, we spent about $10,000. So the same as above, but very small. We're not talking huge dollars here, just some small operational costs. But the bottom line is, overall, we finished under what we thought we would spend, which we traditionally do, but revenues finished very strong. And so I just wanted to provide you with a button on the 2024 budget process. I think we don't always do that when we get to the audit in January, so wanted to put a bow on it for you.
Refresh my memory, when is the fiscal year over?
It ended August 31st, so
Okay,
we
so
are,
it's September 1, are we on the same with the city?
yes ma'am.
Okay, I couldn't remember for sure if we were
Yes.
or not.
And so we're getting final entries in, and then I'll give you an update on the audit on a later item on the agenda.
And we agreed you're gonna recruit for the new position this year.
That's the plan, yes ma'am.
The other thing is, like, we don't really fund a lot for travel. I know this in the budget process, but since we're on, And I do think that it would be good opportunities for the staff to do some traveling when there's opportunities presenting themselves, and not to be too shy about doing it, simply because you can always find best practices and new ideas that, we shouldn't be ashamed to, steal if they look like they might work for us. And also maybe even some opportunities for board members who don't really have a big background in transportation, where there might be a state transportation forum or something where the RMAs are there, so that board members get some exposure too. Not a whole lot, but I think when we plan ahead, we should start thinking about that, because we got a lot of new people on this board.
Totally agree, and I think this next fiscal year will actually show that. So I recently presented at a Movability Summit, which is an advocacy group in Austin. I was on a panel with the executive director of the Central Texas RMA. So we were presenting. So that's one. We've got the Texas Transportation Forum, which we have in prior years sent board members to. That's in, I believe, January of this coming year. And we do have legislative session this coming year as well. So we anticipate a lot more travel this go around. And I would mention also, I was speaking with Ms. Masters yesterday about the Team Texas organization. They were originally a group of tolling entities, so it included all of the RMAs plus North Texas Tollway, Harris County, and some others. And in speaking with the executive director of the Central Texas RMA, who used to be the executive director of TxDOT, he's been talking about reconstituting that group and getting us back together, and the RMAs sharing ideas, sharing what we're doing versus the others, and gathering ideas. So I think we're in line with your comments.
Very good. And any board member who's interested, once you get a schedule of things coming up, send them to the board, and if anyone's interested and has time and want to go, I think it's appropriate for us to pay for that for the RMA and give people some exposure, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then there was another thing in here I noticed, but I don't remember now. Anyway,
I do have a question.
Yeah.
On the project and admin fees, the 38% of budget, tell me about that line.
Yes, ma'am. So we've talked at length with the committee about this. It's a great question, and we've talked about it with the board as well. Basically, it's a timing issue of when projects are completed. We will collect the fees for the projects. It's just tough to know the size. We have some projects that are very small, maybe only a few $100,000, and so our fee is only a few $1,000s. And then we have other projects that are $20 million, and our fee is in the hundreds of thousands. It's very difficult to know when certain projects are gonna actually finish and when we'll collect those fees. So bottom line, we'll collect the fees. Just from year to year, it is not gonna be consistent, depending on which projects we're pursuing and what phase of those projects. So we have like a small amount in there, but the 400,000, if there's a construction project that finishes, we could have over $1 million in fees. And so it just is really dependent on what projects. This is a kind of a strange agenda. Normally we've got multiple projects that are new or being amended, and when we amend a project and we add scope to it, that will usually push out that timeline. So when I'm developing the budget in July, and looking out, okay, this project's scheduled to finish in May for the design, and we'll get our design fee. Then a project partner says, we want to add, can you design this to it as well? Well, then it pushes it out, and we're not going to collect it to the following fiscal year. We're going to collect it either way, but it's just a timing issue and nothing to be concerned about.
Okay, so my question is on that, is there, and maybe you do have it here and I just haven't seen it yet because I'm not familiar with all the financials, but you have a list of this is how we're going to fill that gap in at some point?
Yes, ma'am. I have a list of every project we have and what our fee is, and when the board takes action to amend a project or add a new one, I'm updating that, and we usually go over it with the finance committee at least once a year, if not twice a year, to review, hey, look, we think we might be able to get, I had a couple projects that we thought we were going to collect in August, and it just didn't work out, that we've already invoiced in the new fiscal year, but that's tens of thousands of dollars, and it's just a matter of, did it hit in one year or the next, but we're going to collect it.
and actually, it may be worthwhile just to go to a finance committee if you want to kind of get your knowledge built up. If we have a quorum, then just make sure that you post it.
We do post it that allows for board members to attend, but won't count for
When
quorum.
the next one, you might just want to go just to see what they do. Ms. Bird is our treasurer, and she's pretty thorough and runs a really good meeting, and they drill down quite a bit on everything. Okay. All right, that's good, thank you. I don't want to hold up, we can keep going then.
Sure.
Unless somebody else has questions on the budget.
I'll jump to item 4B. It's our investment report. Won't say too much. Fed raised rates in September. Again, we discussed the fact that I think there was more of a consensus view that they would have raised it sometime during the last fiscal year, but they ended up cutting 50 basis points in September, which was a big move. But we did make just under $900,000 last year, or last quarter. On the next page, IT, if you could scroll down, that bottom table shows the difference between the third quarter and the fourth quarter. We did see the market reacting to the anticipation of the Fed cuts, and so the rates were just dropping a little bit leading up to that. But we did make just under $900,000 last quarter. IT, if you could scroll to the next page. That decrease in the rates and the market kind of adjusting is visible here in the third column from the right. It's titled interest rate. And if you look at the bottom section, you can see we're buying treasuries every single week and they're maturing 4 weeks out. But the interest rates on those start at almost 5.31, get to almost 5.32, and then end at 5.28. So just a little small, but that can definitely affect what we're earning. But yeah, that's it for the investment report. Nothing too exciting to tell you all about there. IT, could you please bring up the PowerPoint for item 4C? So this is the Sun Cycle quarterly report, and we've also got annual activity in here as well because we did conclude the fiscal year. As a reminder, because our fiscal year starts September 1st, quarter 4 is June, July, and August. Trips increased during the quarter from quarter 4 of 2023 by 28%, and operating revenue, which tracks it, is up 29%. We did partner with the PDN Trail Group to do a ride out at the launching at our Escarte station that you'll recall we installed in December. We had good ridership at that, and then our two busiest stations remain San Jacinto and Arts Festival. But I would point out that Escarte is our third busiest station since we launched it in December. There's some photos from the trail ride. This is a summary of activity for the fourth quarter. It's got prior year activity on it. Here, I would just note that we are closing in on 120,000 rides in the lifetime of the program, and also approaching 600,000 pounds of carbon offset since the program began. You're going to see several graphs that look almost the exact same. This is quarter 4 ridership. You can see on the left-hand side, fiscal year 21 was a very good year. That was coming out of the pandemic, and we saw in transit or micro-transit bike share across the country did very, very well coming out of the pandemic. People were looking for something to do, way to get out of the house, and we saw an increase in ridership. The last 2 years have not been as good, and then we've seen a return to ridership in 2024. It looks almost exactly the same for the revenue. As people are paying, we're going to, they're checking out a bike, we're going to collect a similar amount in revenue. Moving to the annual highlights, ridership overall, it was up 28% for the year. We did place that station at Escarte. The county has agreed to sponsor that, $6,000 a year for 5 years. So we collected $6,000 last year. We'll collect $6,000 this year and for the next 3 years. Was our third best performing station. We're seeing a new market, and it's exciting just to see that activity and be along the trail. And I think we've got a great partnership with the Health Foundation on doing projects with the trail, with TxDOT and the county, and so it's nice to be out on the trail. We applied for and received a 4th year of title sponsorship from El Paso Electric. The original title sponsorship agreement was for 3 years. This is 1 year. It's a little bit different process, but we did get that again. And we hosted many special event rides, and so we keep increasing that yearly and just trying to get the word out and grab different groups of people with different interests. Annual ridership, again, just like the fourth quarter revenue and ridership graphs, looks very similar, 28% increase over last year. Operating revenue and expenses compared, you'll see our operating revenues in the purple are up. We actually, when we transferred that $500,000 from the CRRMA, we earned a good amount of interest revenue on that we didn't earn in prior years, and we also have that $6,000 from the county. This is a table showing fourth quarter revenue, the FY24 total year revenue, and then the funds, or the program lifetime and the funds remaining. None of these numbers are audited yet, as we haven't really started the audit process yet, but it does show we've got funding to cover the next 3 years, which is what in fact, we should be able to make it 4 years based on the level of support that was provided by the board last year and the other revenues we're getting.
So last year was the first year we put that in, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a couple more years.
Yes. Well,
That's what I couldn't remember.
Yes, ma'am. Fiscal year '24 was the first year that was supposed to cover, but because of the increased ridership and revenue, the sponsorship from the county and the investment revenue, we should be able to make it last a little longer, assuming no other changes. Operationally, we're continuing to look to expand our footprint, and the feedback we're getting from the station on the trail, we're looking to do something similar on the west side, but we're waiting for some construction to conclude over there. And then Raymond will continue with the application process with the IWBC. Then, as Raymond mentioned earlier, we do have 36 bikes. They are assembled. We're putting graphics on them now. We might be able to launch them this week, but for sure they'll be out in the fleet next week, and that's really exciting. But that's that program, and again, we're paying 20% of the cost of those bikes because of that grant, and so we're able to modernize our fleet at a fraction of the cost, and that's really nice. And then this was given to the committee yesterday, so we were telling them that last bullet's about the resolution that you all just approved a moment ago. Then I think the biggest thing that happened to the bike share during, it wasn't really even the quarter, but September, needed to give you all an update. Trek Bicycle Company owned B-Cycle. It was a subsidiary. That subsidiary, B-Cycle, was purchased by BTS, also known as Bicycle Transit Systems. They've operated 3 bike share systems in Philadelphia, Las Vegas, and Los Angeles using this equipment. And so they purchased B-Cycle, and it's now a subsidiary of BTS. We're working through it with our third-party operator. For the time being, no major changes. In fact, some of the executive staff have been moved over and are part of the board of directors of the company, but it is significant, and we wanted to alert you to that. And that's it for the Sun Cycle report. Any questions?
Is the El Paso Electric grant good for the entire year?
Well, so we received it last year, and we'll apply in the spring again for that again.
We ought to try to up it,
We'll certainly do that.
to kind of get us, I mean, because one, we're expanding, we're doing electric bikes. And they can, I mean, it'd be a good thing for them to do, so they gave us 75,000. We ought to try to go for 100, try to get us closer to filling our gap between revenues and expenses. Mention that the board has programmed money too, to make sure that it's covering all the cost.
Sure.
Give them more exposure for their support.
Will do.
I know some people, I know some people there pretty well, so if you need me to advocate, let me know.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want to get in the middle of it because I don't know what their process is, but if it would help, let me know.
Of course, yes. We'll let you know. We, I believe the process, it's basically a year, so we'll apply again in the spring, and I'll
Okay.
reach out to you.
All right, great.
I missed the commercial sponsorship. I didn't miss that on the chart. What are we doing? Advertising and that kind of stuff?
Yes, so our bikes are branded with El Paso Electric.
Just only El Paso Electric?
Only El Paso Electric for now. So we have an arrangement with the county. I don't believe we've gotten graphics from them yet, but we would put that on a certain number of bikes and then place those ideally at the station there, but they would go around as well so the county could promote items as well.
To put a little more detail on it, so the title sponsor, which is El Paso Electric, they have specific locations that they have purchased through their title sponsorship. But there are other locations on the bike for additional sponsorship that are permitted, and that's what Robert's alluding to. With the county, as part of their sponsorship of Ascarate, they get those other pieces of the bike. So we've segmented it out. Title sponsor gets X, and then other sponsors get other pieces.
I'm just trying to recollect, there was a program you were going out after other sponsors across the spectrum, is that?
Yeah,
is that
it's tough going. We're not as much interest as we would hope for sponsorship.
Part of it is the sphere of influence is limited with where the bikes are and the number of bikes, so a lot of sponsors pick and choose.
Who do we normally compete with for the grant?
For the grant,
Uh-huh.
so the grant I believe there's 4 entities that are applying this year, but it's any of the MPO partners in Texas. I believe the city is applying this year. I can't remember who the other 2 entities are, but it could be the county, Socorro, Vinton, that sort of thing.
This is for the federal grant.
That's for the federal grant,
Mhm.
yes.
Are you talking about the El
The-
Paso
The
Electric?
El Paso Electric.
Oh,
grant.
the El Paso Electric, I believe all the other nonprofits that are pushing for funds from El Paso Electric, I believe we've gotten the biggest allocation from El Paso Electric. They're giving us more than I believe they give any other entity.
And there isn't any interest from all these credit unions? I mean,
We actually had conversations with a credit union, but they ultimately did not go anywhere. I've sent some materials out to some hospitals because we've seen that at other systems, but
Because First Light, I mean, in their commercials, they're there all the time. Forget what the other one is.
if you've got contacts at places, please send them to
Evolve.
me, and then we'll discuss a strategy for reaching out to them.
Is there pushback, or is it just, they just don't respond?
Don't respond. There's not
Yeah,
a
it's
lot.
not a big deal. I mean, when you're looking at where you're gonna put your ad dollars, what is the visibility? And we think it's good, but I think it's also a limited market. But I do agree that because it's talking about the environment and sustainability and carbon reduction, as well as sort of healthy lifestyle, getting out and riding and doing exercise, we might just want to think about like the hospitals are probably not one, and probably a good group to target too, but maybe like some other people who are like interested in like bikes
And I should point out, I've not spent a ton of time. We've got a lot of
We
other
oughta-
things, and
Yeah, our PR person that's doing a lot of our marketing, we ought to ask them.
so we've talked with some different folks in some different systems, and they basically say it's almost a full-time job trying to pull
Yep.
this sort of thing in and really have a robust program. And then, are you covering the cost of the
work,
person
yeah.
and the sponsorship as well?
I
So-
think if we just get a couple of really good ones,
Right.
it's probably better than pounding the pavement for a bunch of little teeny ones, so, anyway, something for future reference. Ms.
And
Bird?
also, haven't we reached out to the hospitals before, Robert?
Yes, ma'am, we've reached out to a few of the hospitals. We can
And also-
re-engage and try that again, but if you've got contacts on the boards at those places, it would be a huge help as a way in.
Right.
Let's see who's on the board. So, Debbie Hamlin used to be on the board. Why don't you talk to her at the pension and see if she still knows any people at the Providence Network? Might be able to help get you in.
Robert, do we keep stats on what percentage of the bikes are being used by the military at Fort Bliss?
I
Because
don't
Fort
bel-
Bliss has discretionary, right, Jim? Discretionary,
Not really.
the general?
Yeah, wait a minute.
He'd like to, but he doesn't.
I don't believe we have any way of knowing whether someone is military or not when they sign up to ride a bike.
So there's no way to track it?
No way to track. There's no way to
Because
track
it's all
it.
credit card. I mean, it's all credit card established. You put a credit card in and we're just getting the money. We don't know who's
Maybe we ought
riding.
to offer a small discount, and that way we can track them.
So I don't know if you remember, maybe a month and a half ago, there's a lot of consternation and press about parking at UTEP. So we hit social media to remind folks, hey, you can park somewhere else and ride one of the bikes in. Very cheap and healthy and all that. We didn't really see much of a bump, but trying to remind folks that we are an option for commuting to campus. You have to get a little bit close, but then it's a really, really nice thing. We've had students from other locations. I think our operators run into them in the field and has had discussions with them, and they've said, this is great. I can't believe more people don't use it, but it doesn't seem to be catching on as
Yeah.
a commuting lifestyle.
Oh,
And
it
that's seen quite a few bike share systems where it's recreational, which is what ours is, rather than a real, hey, this is what I'm taking to get to and from work on a daily basis or getting to and from games. It's in the evenings and recreational. In fact, we saw our ridership in the summer, while it was improved, was a little subdued compared to what we would expect based on what we saw earlier in the year. And we think that's largely the oppressive heat in the evenings and people not wanting to be out as much, just with the very warm summer we had.
That's probably true. Okay, thank you. Good discussion. You want to move on to number D?
Yes, thank you. IT, could you bring up 4D? Yes, thank you all for the discussion, and I'm glad, I think we should probably do this maybe every October, is bring all
Yeah, at
the
least
items
once a
for you
year.
all, so at least the board's seeing them there. Okay, so this is a presentation that has been provided to the board for, I believe, about 15 years, and it's a review of our longstanding GEC Atkins use of resources, local and non-local. So it is broken down by quarter, and I apologize, you can't see to the bottom right the total billings, but you can kind of see those. Maybe not. IT, could you move that that box to the upper left, possibly, for us?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Could you move that to the upper left? Can't move it. Okay. Well, we'll keep that in mind for future presentations. But the purple bars are non-local labor, and the yellow are local labor. You can see. Thank you, IT. You can
Just
see
took her off.
the change over time, and that's just the last couple of I guess 2.5 fiscal years. But you can see in to the left, quarter 53 and 54 of the duration of this measurement, that non-local labor was much higher. That's when we were really involved with Weiler and getting started on that. And then you can see quarter 57 again, a spike. I believe that's also Weiler. But for the most part, local labor is being used on the projects that Atkins as GEC is involved
Okay.
with. And so you can see the trend lines over time as well, the percentages. IT, could you click on the PowerPoint again so I can update through the clicker? Thank you. So this is long-term. On the left is 2009, the right is 2024. If you look all the way to the left, and that purple bar again is non-local, way high. And on the right-hand side, and especially in the middle, you see the local labor really took over what's happening. On that left-hand side, RMA is just getting started. We're building up. We've also got big projects like streetcar and Border West Expressway, which I believe required some resources that are not native to El Paso. So if you think about a streetcar, it's the first one in El Paso in a long time. The folks that do that tend to bounce around, are more national employees and even international employees that are working on rail projects other places. Then as we've shifted our program and really built up our relationship with the county and the variety of projects with the county and other small entities, we're having more and more local labor. If you get to 2022 and 2023, again, Weiler is involved, and we're getting involved with the airport with the county. And so all those airport, that expertise, we often will use folks from out of town. But for the most part, that you can see the local labor on the orange trend line. That is the cumulative amount of local labor, and it is holding steady at about 70% and has been that way for the last 4 to 5 years. And then this is a table showing the different firms that they've used and how much those firms have gotten. It's not sure it's as useful as it once was, just because we have so much data and have had so many projects and so many expenditures, but we've provided it and have continued to provide it. And that's all I have for you on the local resources. Any questions?
I have something to say.
Yes.
And we like using this report so we can show people, especially our new member, how we're going more locally. And to me, that makes a big difference, because people in the community like to see how much local to non-local. And that's why we particularly like this report right here. But we're going to be changing it a little bit coming January.
Okay. It's a good report and a lot of detail. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's all I have for the financial items for item 4.
Do we need a motion to accept these reports?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, that would be great if you all could accept the reports.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the reports.
I second.
So Mr. Smith moved, Ms. Byrd second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Number 5 is the update on the fiscal year 2024 annual audit.
Yes, ma'am. So as mentioned earlier, our fiscal year ended on August 31st. We're getting all our final year-end entries in right now, and we are scheduled to start the audit in early November. That's been our standard timeline with the auditor. They've got other projects they're working on, and so they should get started in August. Ideally, we are ready and follow our previous schedules and have the audit done sometime in the middle of December. meet with the finance committee before the board meeting in January, and then the board approves it at the board meeting in January. I will note that last year we didn't hit enough expenditures in our grant program. We just kind of had a really strange year. So we didn't have a single audit, as it's called. We will have that again this year, and so that will be a more robust look into our operations related to grants. But other than that, nothing of significant note related to the audit.
All right, thank you. Any
And one
comment?
thing, yes, that we're already scheduling our January meeting for the finance committee. So all of that will be, so we can go over it before we present it to the board meeting in January.
Okay, thank you very much. Number 6, presentation and discussion on change orders recently approved by the Executive Director for the John Hayes, Fabens Sidewalks, and Fabens Airport Hangars projects.
Okay, if I could have IT bring up the PowerPoint for number 6. I'll go through this one pretty quickly. So for the benefit of our newest member, there was a board resolution that was passed several years back that authorizes the executive director to execute change orders on our construction projects. And there's a couple of requirements in there. If it's under 50,000, then I can sign it and let the board know at the next board meeting. If it's over 50,000 but under 100,000, then I have to send out immediate information to the board via email and then brief the board at the following board meeting. So with that in mind, then we've got 4 change orders to brief you on today. None of them were over the $50,000 mark. So the first one, the first one is with the John Hayes project, which is out on the far east side. So you'll see in green, those were the prior change orders that had been executed to date, and the one that was executed between the last board meeting and today is the silt fence. So we added a silt fence at the request of an adjacent property owner, and that was at the cost of $38,000. I should note, with each of the projects, the project sponsor in this case is the County of El Paso. The county reviews these expenditures and approves them before we actually execute anything. So since they're funding it, they have ultimate say in whether or not they want to participate. So that was approved for John Hayes. The next ones are for the Fabens Airport Hangar Expansion Project. This is the box hangars that we are currently constructing out at Fabens for the county, and we signed 3 change orders. And again, as the county is the project sponsor for this one, they've reviewed and approved each of these in advance of me executing them. But it includes additional spread foundation materials for the facilities that are coming in, a construction permit that had not been anticipated, paid for those costs at a little over $5,000. And then the last one was lighting that was not included originally for a storage room. So pretty small items totaling about $29,000. But again, these were reviewed and approved by the county in advance of my execution. So that's it for this one. No action is required. This is really just for your information.
Any questions or comments? Okay, so then we're going to move on to item 7, update and status of the Pelicano Drive widening project.
Yes, so let me, this one, I'm going to ask you all to go into executive session, but before we do that, it has been a while since we've done that, but before we do that, I do want to share some information with the public. So this is the Pelicano project. I mentioned this one to you, Ms. Masters, recently. This one, in terms of the latest developments on the county side, we are completing weed removal and trash pickup along the entire stretch of the roadway. You may recall we did this last year as well. The weeds and the trash accumulate to such an extent that it impedes traffic, or I should say it impedes pedestrian movements, and right around the school we need to be careful with those kids. So we should be done with that, I believe, by this Friday. So that's it on the county side. On the bankruptcy side, we held a mediation on September 26th. Ultimately, we did not come to a complete agreement, but we did make some progress, and I'll share a lot of that with you in executive session. We have our attorney standing by, and we can go into a little more detail with you on that. Ultimately, though, while we did not come to an agreement, we did agree with the trustee to continue conversations with him, and we're putting together some additional information for his consideration. I'll meet with him personally. Ultimately, if settlement does not happen, as you may recall from the last briefing, we do have a hearing set for the summary judgment, a declaratory judgment action that we filed. That is set for mid-November. So if settlement doesn't occur, we have that hearing date set. So we're hopeful that settlement will get us there, but if not, we do have the hearing scheduled for November. So that's it on the bankruptcy side. And then lastly, as you know, we've had been in conversations with the surety company to take over the project and restart construction. Those plans should get to them before next week, hopefully, the 100% plan, so they can go and secure quotes from contractors. I'll mention that they have received the 95% plans. They've shared that with several contractors, so the contractors know this is coming, and they've begun looking at the 95% plans. But we're going to put the finishing touches on that soon and get it out to them very soon. In the mediation, I should mention the surety company was there, then they confirmed that this plan is still a go. So we are still planning on giving them the plan set. They'll get quotes, utilizing the existing project funds and advancing construction while we go through the rest of the bankruptcy and hearing procedures. So everything is still moving forward. So that's what I have for the public, but I would ask, subject to your questions, of course, I would ask that we move into executive session.
Okay, so with that, the time is 9:46 a.m. on October 9th, 2024, and the RMA Board of Directors will now retire into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071. For the purpose of consultation with an attorney, we will reconvene to open meeting upon conclusion of the executive session. Thank you. Everyone else who's not going can wait if you want, but there'll be probably no other business once we come out. Okay, good morning, everyone. Again, it's now 10:31 a.m. It's October 9th, 2024, and the Board of Directors of the RMA is reconvening its open session after deliberations and executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071. The board consulted with its attorney but took no action in executive session. Is there any other business?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion from Mr. Reyes. Ms. Masters, second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. It's 10:32. We're adjourned. Thank you all so much. Good
Thank you.
meeting, everyone.